I'm here to talk about Threadlocker. Let me give you a little background on Threadlocker. It is the original Loctite product. This is Loctite. And like Kleenex and facial tissue are associated with each other, this is very much, when you say Loctite, people think of this product. It was invented in 1953 by Dr. Vernon Kriebel in his basement laboratory. It was on the market by the 60s. And like I said, it's pretty much synonymous with Loctite. So what exactly is it? It is basically an adhesive. Methyl methacrylate is one of the key, most common ingredients in this particular adhesive, but it's meant to take up the space in between a typical nut and bolt. And I did an illustration here while you guys were talking, so you have to excuse this if it's not exactly perfect. But if I took this nut and bolt and cut the nut in half, what you're looking at is about 20% of contact. That's it. There's very little contact between those. If it were 100% contact, it wouldn't be able to move. And I think you can actually hear this jiggle. Can you hear that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's just me shaking this nut and bolt. That's the amount of space. That's where the Threadlocker goes. So the Threadlocker gets put on the threads of the nut or the bolt, and you put a little bit on the thread, you thread it together. And then what happens is it will cure in the absence of moisture. So that's, they're anaerobic, and that's what they do. Once they'll stay fluid, they have great shelf life, but once they're in the absence of moisture, moisture from the air, they will cure. Now you might ask yourself, well, why doesn't it cure in the bottle, John? There's no air in there. Well, actually, yes, there is. A big part of the invention of Threadlocker was this breathable plastic. This is a super specific plastic that's used so that air is actually able to get in there and the liquid doesn't get in there. But that's a key component to Threadlocker. Now, Threadlockers come in a couple different flavors. They're going to come in many different, but the two most common are 271 and 242, and they do have some differences. So 242 blue is the most common Threadlocker, and I use a ton of it. So I buy these big, huge bottles. But then, you know, the downside of that is also I don't want to carry this with me. So it's nice to have some little guys that you could toss into your RV or into your backpack or, you know, into the trunk of your car or something like that, so that if you're camping or whatever, you have some handy. So I do like these guys. But the blue is basically for bolts from, say, 1/4 inch up to 3/4 of an inch. And it is removable. We call it removable, but with a wrench. And then when you start getting into the red, this is what we call permanent. It's for bolts that are larger than this or for permanent applications. And by permanent, we mean you can still bust it apart, but you're going to have to use a torch to heat it up to get it apart. So these guys are meant, isn't that a huge, look at the size of that nut. I just found that. I don't know what would, I mean, look at it, swallow this whole, never mind. So what you would use this for around your home, you know, the thing to remember is it's not just for auto and cars and stuff like that. It's not just for this carburetor from a Husqvarna V40 chainsaw. It's for almost anything in your house. Like maybe you have a hook in your bathtub and there's that little set screw in there that always comes out and it wiggles. Or a doorknob or door handle. The door handle to my laundry room is always loosening up. Of course, I use a ton of it out in the shop. It's great for router bit bearings. And this little screw comes out, the bearing cuts through your wood. Even this handsaw, I use Threadlocker on. It's got 3 little screws right up here that loosen up all the time, drive me crazy. So you just have to think outside the box a little bit on your Threadlocker. Great product. You can use it on everything from cabinet doorknobs to your motorcycle. Sarah, I'll toss it back to you.